This is not going to be like my usual scripted videos that you're most likely accustomed to. I have a script and I would be looking at it, but I also will be raw dogging some thoughts concerning the topic of this video. I haven't done this kind of video in a very long time, so I do apologize if I am slightly rusty. Firstly, if you are anti-LGBTQ+, either you don't support it or you aren't even neutral to it, and do not support it and all kind of jazz, this video ain't for you. If you are against or not even open to many of the concepts of transgender, same-sex romantic relationships, polygamy, all that jazz, feel free to go watch another video. But if you are open to just hearing about it and or are LGBT, then hey, hello. Over 2 years ago, I discovered an LGBTQ light novel series named The Mimosa Confessions, focusing on a trans girl named Ushio, and the second I finished the first book, it became one of my favorite reads of all time, immediately hopping on the Reddit forum for it, making some edits about it, and of course making a YouTube video about it. Fun fact, I've seen this video get some people to the series, which is really sweet. That's really good to hear. When I made my original video on the series, they were very raw, uncompressed thoughts on the series, talking about my likes and dislikes, and how Ushio became one of the best representations of a trans girl I've read before. And being clear, I don't really recommend watching those videos anymore. They are very raw recordings with me stuttering, and there's a lot I could have improved on, but if you do want more clarification on my thoughts on the series, it might be best to check those out. Now I'll say it straight, this video will be mostly glazing over the series. I do think it's a masterclass in showcasing a realistic depiction of both transgenderism and how people will react. It's a story about change and growing up, and while it can be applied to, many other stories and situations, the subject of who's growing up makes this a very unique experience. This is a very special series, and something I would highly recommend for you to read by yourself. And I say this because all the volumes are out, and I'm gonna be spoiling the shit out of it. A lot of my praises are things that are built up across the entire series, and have amazing payoffs, so go read it. You got time, go do it. Okay, it's a little bit long, but With that being said, this will be an overall review of the series with me talking about all the aspects across, every single volume and book. I know I didn't make videos on volume 4 and 5, so this will serve as an alternative for it. And hey, it'll all come together since I'm talking about the entire series. But what is a Mimosa Confession? Turns out there's an actual in-lore answer for it, but this is one of the few times I'll be summary slop, so let me give you a quick synopsis. Our story follows Sakuma, an ordinary high school student who's low-key a loser and doesn't have many friends. He used to have a childhood friend by the name of Ushio, but the two slowly separate during middle school. During his first day at high school, he befriends Natsuki, a very sweet, albeit airhead-filled girl. But as he heads home from school during the night, he comes across someone in a schoolgirl outfit. It takes him a second, but he realizes it's his childhood friend Ushio, who's just as surprised to see him. In Volume 1, a big part of the book is everyone's reactions to Ushio, as she comes out in front of her whole classroom, much to everyone's confusion, including Sakuma. This is where I want to praise this series first, its realistic tone. The reaction is what you expect. Some people are like, okay, I don't care. Some are confused, some immediately have questions, some are like, what the fuck? Questions obviously get risen, like which restroom does Ushio use, what sports will they play, and the big thing is, Ushio's popular. She used to be a part of the track team, and quite literally every girl was crushing on her. So the moment she comes out, everyone is like, what? And needless to say, Ushio's social rep goes down tremendously to almost being a social outcast. This is in part due to just Ushio being different, but also a certain person targeting Ushio for wanting to be a girl, Nishizono. Verbally and physically harassing Ushio, she's dedicated to convert Ushio back to who she was, and serves as an antagonist for a big chunk of the series. Ushio luckily isn't alone in dealing with this. After she comes out, she finds solace in Sakuma and Natsuki, and the three of them essentially become a trio. Sakuma and Ushio get to reunite after years and reforge their friendship, and I'd be lying if their relationship wasn't one of the main parts of the series, as it's soon revealed that Ushio has a crush on Sakuma, leading to a very long web of feelings and emotions on all sides. That's as far as I want to go in terms of plot, as a lot of the best things in the book are the little details. Much time is spent on Ushio's transition and mindset. It kind of happens immediately, her transition, but there's a lot of time in explaining Ushio's mindset, how she came to the conclusion and whatnot. Not a lot of people initially take Ushio seriously, and you can understand where they're coming from. Is it a bit? Is it a phase? How do we respond? Should we just blindly accept it? Sakuma wants to accept his friend for who she wants to be, but doesn't really know how to go about it. He doesn't want to force himself, because Ushio can obviously fucking tell he isn't being natural, that he's trying too hard to treat Ushio like a girl when she just wants everyone to be themselves. Because we primarily look into the eyes of Sakuma though, we get to see his evolution of how he views her, how he describes her. There's this really good scene in Volume 1 where Sakuma accidentally calls Ushio girly when she helps bandage him up. And initially, he apologizes, like he fucked up. But he realizes Ushio actually took it as a compliment. It meant something to her. And the reason for that is due to the actions Ushio took to be perceived as a girl. The way she dressed, the way she talked, it was all done consciously. So the fact it was an unconscious decision that made her seem like a girl, that made Sakuma naturally see her as one, makes her happy. It's a very heartwarming scene, and something that isn't explicitly said, since we're in Sakuma's perspective. He's just confused initially. I really do mean it though when I say there's an evolution how Sakuma views Ushio. The way Sakuma describes Ushio in the book changes of how he describes her voice and her smell. It's kind of bizarre, but I do the same thing with people, so it's not too weird. There's even a scene where he fantasizes about her. I'm not elaborating on that, go read the book for yourself. But it gets him thinking on his feelings towards Ushio. Like, she's cute and attractive, but does that make me gay or something? Because she was originally a boy? You know, nothing wrong with being gay, but I'm pretty sure I'm not gay. Volume 1 is full of these kinds of moments, and it soon overtakes the plot emotionally. You know, it's coming of age and romance, and fuck me, do I love romance. Love makes people do stupid things. It makes Ushio and Sakuma do stupid things. They can hide behind whatever reason they go with, but it's the fact they care for each other to do a lot of confusing actions. And it's not just romantic love I'm talking about, it's every kind of love, even the platonic ones. You have Sakuma telling Ushio that even though he doesn't feel the same towards her, he'll still be her friend and always support her. And he genuinely means that, and not in the weird situationship that shitty ass people use. Since we're primarily in Sakuma's point of view, we get to see his genuine view of the situation and his feelings regarding Ushio. It's a very smart and purposeful way of viewing the narrative. Despite Ushio being a big focus of the series, we never once get to see into her point of view and how she feels. She gets to say how she feels, and we sometimes get glimmers of how she feels subconsciously, but it's up in the air most of the time, and I love it. I didn't include this part in the script, but there's one scene in Volume 2 or 3 where... Let me find it, actually. There was this one scene in Volume 2 where Ushio and Sakuma accidentally view a movie with a sex scene. You know, it's, kind of embarrassing, the teenager shit. Oh god, fucking close your eyes. But when he glances over to Ushio, she has this stare. And Sakuma doesn't know how to describe it. I'll quote it. "I was taken aback by her reaction. It was a bit of a strange feeling, I have to admit. Like I just been given a peek behind the curtain and seeing a glimpse of some fundamental part of Ushio as a person." The light wasn't in her eyes, essentially. And if you look at the illustration, which I'm going to show right now, it shows this blank expression. And I praised this scene in my original book review, or, talking my thoughts in the book about what this scene meant. Because you can interpret it in a lot of ways. Maybe Ushio sees what she can't be physically. Maybe she sees what she wanted to be, something like that, something along those lines, Everyone has different interpretations of it. That's just the way I interpret it personally. It's one of those scenes where you don't get explicitly told what Ushio is thinking. And it's a very, very strong scene that really encapsulates one of those feelings of like, gender dysphoria. There you go. I was gonna say transgenderism. No, gender dysphoria. That's one of the best fucking scenes, that accurately describes that feeling. Look at that empty ass stare, bro. But back to the script. We don't gotta have everything detailed and explained to us, and sometimes it's fun seeing the characters themselves figure it out in real time. And one of the main goals of Mimosa Confessions, besides, just introducing us, gender dysphoria, is challenging our viewpoints, bringing up topics that we might be uncomfortable with. Some characters are uncomfortable with Ushio's transition, and more topics are introduced that some characters are comfortable with, while others aren't. One of the biggest contributors to this conversation is Sarah, one of Sakuma's classmates, whose literal goal story-wise and narrative-wise and everything like that, and structure-wise, everything, is just to open up Sakuma's head and test him on his beliefs, what makes him tick and whatnot. His first introduction is hitting on Ushio and not giving a shit she was originally born male. It's a spectrum. You have characters on one side, such as Nishizono, who absolutely despises Ushio coming out, and then you have the other side, which is a complete acceptance without even thinking about it. And in the middle of it, you have Sakuma, who fluctuates between both sides as he struggles on how he feels for Ushio. It's this group of people around him that test his thoughts on Ushio and the slight prejudice that he has ingrained in him, such as looking down polygamy because of his view on love, but also accepting someone transitioning to female. Like, why can't you accept both? And to be clear, there isn't the right answer to that question or mindset. You can accept one thing, but not accept the other. It's waffles, pancakes? It's made to get you thinking, not to convince you one answer is right or the other. Sakuma doesn't automatically just change his mind after being questioned. He's like, okay, I didn't really think about that way, but it's not gonna suddenly change my opinion 180. And what results from these conversations is a deeper revelation for the characters, especially for Sakuma, our protagonist, for better or for worse. After Sakuma rejects Ushio's feelings, he figures out that Sarah wants to date Ushio. So Ushio is like, okay, Sarah, if you score number 1 on the school exams coming up, I'll date you. And Sakuma, after hearing this, decides that Ushio shouldn't date someone like Sarah. someone who has multiple girlfriends and doesn't seem to have a care in the world, so he takes it within his own hands to study for the exams and get number 1. Keep in mind, Sakuma is not a very smart student. He goes into overtime studying just to get a chance to make sure Sarah does not get number 1. Ushio is rightfully fucking confused on what this means. Does Sakuma secretly like her? What's going on? I'd be fucking confused too. Sakuma tries defending himself, saying he was really doing her a favor, but that's low-key kind of bullshit. And it's that mix of teenage romance drama shit, stuff you've seen quite literally hundreds of times in shows and possibly real life. And it ends with a kiss between the two, in which Sakuma describes Ushio's pheromones as one of a woman. It's a very conflicting yet beautiful scene that describes just how much the relationship has changed between them, and how Sakuma views Ushio now, which is something that gets developed later on in the story. Now that is book 1, and that is the only book I will actively review in a structured format. I have videos for volumes 1, 2, and 3 if you're interested in getting a more comprehensive view on my opinion. From here on out, I'm going to be talking about the series as a whole regarding my praises and flaws. I'm going to be jumping around now, I'm sorry. First thing I love how much time is spent on people's thoughts on Ushio. In one part makes Ushio's struggles more highlighted because of how apparent everyone thinks of her, but it also just allows us to see what other people think. We get to see what the general public thinks of Ushio, that she's weird and gross, and insert derogatory slur here, that she's someone that they no longer know. Not too much attention is spent on them since they're more generalized, but as the series goes along and we get to physically know individual students, we also get to see them individualizing Ushio as this new person, like, wow, she's normal like us. A human being. That Romeo and Juliet play really did a lot for Ushio in terms of showing who she is, and as indifferent as I feel in book 2, that subplot will always be amazing. But not everyone switches up that easily. Some people have more personal gripes that causes their negative reaction to Ushio coming out, besides being, it's weird. Nishizono and Noi are two characters that go out of their way to show their hatred toward Ushio for being a girl, and both also have an arc dissecting why they feel the way they do. And the most interesting thing about these two characters' arcs, it doesn't really matter why they felt the way they did, because even at the end of the arcs, what was hatred just becomes indifferent/neutral. Nishizono once had a crush on Ushio when she was a boy, and Noi felt disrespected by Ushio dipping out on the track team when she transitioned. And for both of them, they get that realization that Ushio is still the same person as she always was, for better or for worse in their eyes. Noi tries to convince Ushio to race him in an attempt to make him come back as a boy, but Ushio effortlessly beats him while she's still a girl, which gets him reflecting like, shit bro, maybe I was thinking about this wrong. Was Ushio always the same person back then? Nishizono's is a little bit more complicated due to her natural hatred that causes her to destroy everything in her life. Ushio isn't the main source of it, but a byproduct of who she is. If that doesn't make sense, I know it requires a lot more context, which I don't want to showcase, but so go watch my volume 3 video for more elaboration. That's the only time I'm advertising that shit. And there is one more character that despises Ushio's transition, but it's in the same line as the others. They all have a motivation for wanting the past version of Ushio back, but it doesn't end the way they want to. Ushio's sister. Now she has a lot more attachment to seeing Ushio as a boy, as a brother, due to their family history, and I won't spoil it for you. Yes, there are some things I want you to experience for yourself, but the way it ends is very interesting. Ushio knows that her sister can't see her for who she wants to be, so she actually lets her call her brother. She lets her view her as a boy, and I know some people aren't gonna like that decision, but I like it from a story and character perspective. This is gonna sound fucking fucked up, so hear me out for a second. It'd be so easy to just glaze and be pro-positive, and for the record, there's nothing wrong for a story that does that, for some escapism and all that jazz, if you're having a terrible fucking life. I'm not invalidating that here. But as someone who enjoys a good story, writing wise and stuff like that, that hurt. It'd be kind of boring for everything to be handed. It'd be kind of boring for everything to be handed to Ushio on a platter, and it also undermined a lot of the themes in the Mimosa Confessions. Especially the ones regarding the struggle of being yourself and conforming to society, which some characters are created specifically for that purpose, like Sarah. And what helps with these different people and how they view Ushio is the fact we actually get to see, what they see, how they feel. This series has a ton of perspective changes. It really begins in book 2 when we get a view into Natsuki's perspective on certain events in the book. And from there, the series frequently shows how everyone thinks and feels, other classmates, other students, and we even get one of the teachers. And most if not all of these serve to show a reaction to one specific topic, Ushio. We get to see Natsuki's view on Ushio, Nishizono's view on Ushio, Noi's view on Ushio, and we get to see a whole teacher board conference meeting on the topic of Ushio. And these aren't exactly done to, necessarily glaze Ushio as this nonchalant figure, but more for the story to show the different opinions people have on her and why they would have it. Ushio's sister gets a lot more focus with her perspective due to the relationship, and hers is actually done in a very unique way, as half of the book is dedicated to multiple time skips addressing the relationship they've had over their retry. Hers is done in a very unique way, as half of the book is dedicated to multiple time skips addressing the relationship they had over their entire years and how it got to the stage it is now. It shows why it hurts her, no matter if it serves as a good justification or not. The story paints it in a way that it's important to understand, even if you do not agree in the slightest, especially when you take consideration that someone who was once close with Ushio, her fucking sister, you can imagine them being really close. It's very nuanced, and I like how it also ends nuanced. It doesn't end completely resolved. The worst thing you can do in, writing-wise, is suddenly make a character switch up just to fit the plot. That stuff takes time, and while it doesn't always need to be directly shown, it needs to be implied at the very least. What does get a lot of time, though, is Sakuma and Ushio's relationship. And I just figured out now, out of all the 5 books we have here, not a single one of these fucking covers shows a Sakuma, so... rest in peace, bro. Their relationship is a slow burn like nothing else. Ushio's feelings for Sakuma are evident and present in almost every part of the story. And Sakuma is like, but do I? You'd think Ushio would just move on, but fuck no, she's quietly down bad for this dude. There are so many scenes where Sakuma will just bluntly say something to Ushio, and Ushio will do a slight physical reaction response that just indicates how much she loves him. And as they get more and more comfortable with each other, Ushio gets a lot more serious with her feelings for Sakuma, especially regarding how fed up she is with his bullshit. It takes around fucking 4 books until Sakuma officially asks Ushio out, and it does not go in the way you would think. Both parties aren't happy, and it's clear the way they view the situation needs to change in order for the relationship to work, if both of them want it. Sakuma wants to learn how to love Ushio. In any other situation, I'd be raising eyebrows, which is what other characters think as well, but since we're in Sakuma's perspective, we actually see what he means by it since it's such a unique situation. Sakuma is passionate, but often stupid without thinking. The type of dude to overstudy for an exam and get number 1, just so his beloved childhood friend doesn't date an evil-ass dude without even thinking about what it would look like in others' eyes. He tends to fuck around and experiment before finalizing his thoughts, like it's his first time living. When he discovers Ushio's secret of wanting to be a girl during the night, his apology is giving Ushio an embarrassing comment he made because it's also a secret, and you can see Ushio falling 10 feet down for this man. He is not always the best person, but he always learns from his mistakes and tries his best to rectify it. It's his intentions that matter the most, and he never gives up trying to show it. It's written in a way in which you can understand why someone like Ushio would fall in love with Sakuma, especially with flashbacks indicating that Sakuma always had this sort of mindset. But talking about the plot for a split second, Sakuma kind of fucks up his relationship with Ushio. I'm not gonna spoil it, but it definitely caused Ushio some insecurities regarding her gender identity. He sees her as a boy for a split second and gets fucking scared of kissing her. And it really makes you realize, taking everything into consideration, that they're kind of a bad match romantically. But he tries to make it up to her during a school trip by asking her to run away with him to go somewhere. They miss their flight, their entire class is worried and begins calling them. It's looking to be an adventure. Then their bus ride gets delayed by an hour. They gotta walk through the freezing cold and go to a hotel that barely accepts them. Sakuma has to call his mom and be like, yo, can you get plane tickets for us, please? Bro was not prepared. He made this plan in legitimately 10 seconds and was like, yeah, I see no issue here. That's the type of person Sakuma is. You can only learn via experience, and that's the best way of describing him. It's by fucking up that allows him to grow. His prejudice, his feelings, and soon the type of relationship he may want with Ushio. And later on, we do get to see that through likely trial and error, they are able to have the relationship they want with each other. I think the way they act in certain parts of the book are questionable / low-key stupid, but honestly, it does come off as slightly teenager shit that I've seen in my own personal life, so I don't really question it too hard, but I do understand some people that may take some issue with it. Especially for someone like Ushio, who has a hard time with people who understand her on a fundamental level. And there's a certain part of the story where Sakuma gets kind of offended that Ushio went to Sarah to talk about her thoughts, when Sarah is someone who is constantly proven to be someone who's incredibly open. He does not think ill of you in any sort of way, so it's not a surprise that Ushio feels like she can communicate her thoughts to someone like that. And in the story, it's kind of painted as a bad thing, you betrayed me? But I do kind of understand, which is why it makes kind of nuanced, also slight teenager shit. You talk behind my back? And it's here why I do need to talk about some flaws I have with the story. Just some personal gripes I have with it. every peak has a downfall. I don't fucking know, man. It's not major, but they do kind of permeate as the series goes along. You know, there's some actions that characters do that annoy me, but that's small stuff. Some big ones I have is the character list. This series very much favors certain characters, and it leads to some shafting. Obviously, there are some characters that have their purpose, and when their purpose is done, bam, they're out of the story. That makes sense, I get that. For a majority of the series, we follow this triangle of Sakuma, Ushio, and Natsuki. But slowly as the story goes along, Natsuki low-key dies in terms of plot relevance. Matter of fact, I don't even mention her that much in this video, because it's not really exactly plot relevant. I mean, she's there. I too am in this episode. It's not that she doesn't get any meaningful arcs. Volume 3 has an amazing one for her regarding leadership and the amount you can hold. Actually, let me go check, actually. Pause, future Noodle. Oh my god. Okay, I went for my Mimosa Confessions Volume 3 script. I didn't even mention her fucking arc. That's crazy, bro. Oh my god, I'm so sorry, Natsuki. I actually shafted you. Basically, Volume 3 has an amazing arc regarding leadership and the amount of responsibility Natsuki sort of like puts upon herself due to seeing the other characters, Sakuma and Ushio, you know, really break out of boundaries to do something that they initially couldn't really think they could do initially. And so Natsuki kind of wanted to follow in those footsteps and kind of bit more than she could chew. And it's, in a way, it's like, it's sort of meta in the way that she tries to like play catch up, but you know, when you try to run way too fast, you start tripping. I guess you tripped a little bit too much. No, I'm playing. I love you, Natsuki. You can make a good defense for Natsuki, but I'm so sorry. You know, it's just that due to the many events that happen, it essentially becomes the Sakuma and Ushio romantic adventures, and also Sarah's there. I don't fucking like Sarah. So Sarah originally served as a natural opposing force to the story and characters. He would frequently pop in out of nowhere, psychoanalyze someone, and then dip out before he caused more trouble because no one fucking likes Sarah. His appearances were short but strong, leaving imprints on many of the characters, including Nishizono. Sakuma got a lot of it though. Almost all of Sarah's antics are to psychoanalyze Sakuma and make him think about why he thinks the way he does. However, at a certain point, Sarah becomes more of a plot device than an actual character. Book 5 has probably the worst implementation of Sarah, where he directly traps Sakuma just to employ his philosophy. Now, this has happened previous times in the series, they've had multiple conversations, but realistically, Sakuma could have just dipped. The only reason he didn't was because Sarah always had something over him. The possibility of going after Natsuki or Ushio, a phrase indicating he knew more than he should. It was all to entice and essentially bait Sakuma into having a conversation with him. It's what makes those conversations annoying as fuck, but also endearing, with both parties secretly in some way wanting to get something out of the conversation, with one playing around and the other needing to essentially endure it. A love-hate relationship. But in book 5, Sarah fucking steals Sakuma's bike lock or bike key or whatever and puts him in an actual unforceable situation where he needs to listen to Sarah with his polygamy shit. It's one of the few times the conversation is not enjoyed by anyone because Sakuma came in expecting a 1v1, gets jailed, gets roasted by Sarah's girlfriends, and then he has to bike home like a loser. This gets some justification later towards the end regarding Sarah's feelings for Sakuma, but it was the one time I was like, what the fuck are they doing with Sarah? And I'm not gonna spoil Sarah's feelings for Sakuma and like the conversation they have because, no. There's a lot of confusing decisions for book 5, and it's not just the character moments. Certain story events are, confusing to say the least. There is a time skip in the epilogue that skips over a very big part of time to the point we catch up with these characters when they're adults and in college. We get to see Sakuma, who's still low-key a loser, and Ushio, who works part-time at a bar. The relationship they have is sweet as they live together now and hug each other to sleep. A lot has happened that we aren't directly told, as you know, time has passed, most definitely. And there's a lot of details here that show just how much has changed. For example, Sakuma and Ushio were able to mend their relationship in some way. It's not directly said, obviously, but with the way Sakuma describes it, it seems he got over his discomfort regarding certain aspects of the relationship. The way Sakuma describes Ushio also is notable, and the way she takes off her heels, the way she smells. It's almost second nature to him to view Ushio this way, and we can use the implication of time to, guess what happened between the two over the time skip. It was obviously positive given they moved in together, and there's actually a fanfic going over this skip portion of time. And if you read the series not fully satisfied with, the epilogue and skipping over that much amount of time, then I suggest you go read it. But the thing is, I do feel somewhat satisfied because of how it ends, and what the true meaning of the Mimosa Confessions is. Representation. Representation is a very hard thing to get right. There's so much nuance in trying to represent a group of people that you're never gonna get fully right. Matter of fact, Mimosa Confessions won't be 100% accurate in representing trans people or any other group of people perfectly. It might not even represent Japan 100% perfectly. That's just how it works. It's very stupid to generalize everyone. However, you can clearly see when someone cares for representation and tries their best to be realistic while depicting it respectfully. One thing about the Mimosa Confessions is that it's very careful with terms. It will show you some of the most gut-wrenching and beautiful scenes of a trans girl realizing who she is and just gender dysphoria in general and what that means for her, but not once does it utter the word trans or transgender. It's usually a phrase, coming out as a girl, transitioning to a girl, and it's a very interesting reason to not use that term that most people associate with it. Was it a localization thing? A mistranslation? Does the word transgender not exist in the Japanese language? Well, I actually don't know. But in my first video on the Mimosa Confessions, the author had an afterword where they explicitly mentioned not putting any familiar terms we may associate with being trans or transgender as a way to not put any characters under specific labels. They didn't specifically mention transgender, but it was more so also. I'm sure that many readers will probably notice that there are a few key categorical words I intentionally avoided while writing this novel, and I'm guessing at least some of you may be curious as to why. They wanted the story to feel relatable to the widest possible audience, and so, they deliberately wrote to be open through individual, individual interpretation in some regards. Oh yeah, I forgot to talk about the author, Mei Hachimoku and Kuka. Thank you guys are awesome. Now, at the time, I understood the reason, especially as the series was just starting out. But as it goes along, Ushio and the other characters grow more. They become more proud of who they are. They aren't worried or have any gripes about who they are. They take pride in who they are. I keep saying who they are, sorry. And the dialogue in the story reflects that. Before the time skip in the epilogue, we're given an interview log with a bunch of students being interviewed regarding Ushio. And it's here where the term trans and transgender is officially used by the characters. With no shame or fanfare, it's just there. And I don't know if it was a localization or translation issue, but something about it popped out in my head. The series has progressed so far that with Volume 1, saying trans or transgender wouldn't have had the impact that it would have now. They almost get away with saying queer in Volume 1, but it's cut off, showing the implications of any term being a negative connotation. So it turns out after rereading Volume 1, the term trans actually does get used in a derogatory way. I'm not going to say it because it might get me demonetized, but Sakuma thinks about it in his mind before cutting himself off. It sort of reinforces my point on the term not being used properly until it's at a point where it could be used positively. So, I was right. I'm actually really glad the story holds off on this term until it's at a point where it can be used with pride, with positivity, or an I don't care mindset, whatever floats your boat. It's a very smart decision writing-wise, and a small way of showing, just how much everything has changed without explicitly saying it. And I think the representation is at strongest right after they use the term trans and transgender. Like how I mentioned earlier, there's a time skip where we follow our characters during college, and Ushio has a part-time job at a bar. Now at this bar, Ushio is popular. She's the talk of the town. People come to her for usual bar shit. I haven't gone to a bar, I'm 21, fuck me. But the important part here is how important Ushio feels at the bar. These people let themselves be vulnerable to her, and she figures out that many of the people are in similar situations like hers, struggling to be themselves, regardless if it's on, the topic of being trans or someone else. She invites these people to confide in her, to be a beacon to show that you can be yourself. And it's obviously done to impact both the characters in the series and the audience reading. It's done to show that you aren't alone, not in a creepy way, but for those that do feel alone because of who they are, and the fear they might be rejected for being that way. The story does end the cliche-ass way, with Ushio saying the title of the series, Mimosa Confessions, which is corny as shit, but it's actually important, so let it slide. And I actually saved something for last. During the entire story, we get all the perspectives in the world except for Ushio. And it's purposeful. She's the main focus. She's mysterious. And we're left to wonder what her thoughts are at certain scenes, which I love. And for me personally, I don't need to know what she's thinking because I know what she's thinking, especially in very certain scenes. And at the very last few pages of the final volume, we get transferred to a different perspective, a different time, to preschool, or elementary, 1 to 2. We get to see a boy confused and panicking in the boys' locker room, feeling like he doesn't fit in and wants out. And it's not until a black-haired boy named Sakuma snaps her out of it, holding her hand and running through the hallway, with the girl never wanting to let go. I don't usually physically collect. I'm well versed in collecting things digitally, not NFTs, but it's just easier to have it all on one computer where I can just, instantly get the files right, just in the palm of my hands. There's always a couple exceptions though. Plushies, merch. Okay, this example doesn't work too well, but I don't usually collect stuff. So the fact that I have an entire collection that was loud. The fact that I have an entire collection says something. You know, is it positive? Is it negative? Am I wasting trees? You decide. Either way, it feels good to talk about a series like this. This is such an abnormal case. I do not like reading. That's a joke. I do read when the book's interesting. You know, many times things don't interest me. But a good book can change someone. And I'm Exhibit A in response. And if you yourself are interested in the series, I recommend buying it physically because it looks good. And obviously, it's a very direct case of LGBTQ rep that I think is done very well for the most part. And hopefully this is coming out right before Pride Month ends because I suck at scheduling videos. And yeah, I think I'm really cutting it close when this video releases. I don't like lying to myself, so I'll be frank. This is quite literally one of the only times I'll make a video on a light novel series. Maybe I'll make it on ReZero, but that'll be the anime adaptation. And the only reason I'm making a video on this light novel series is because it had trans girl rap. I'm very easy to please. I'm very easy to please, you know. We all got our preferences and reasons for watching something. You know, I know some people that got in the love life, you know, just for the Yuri. Anyway, that's my one Pride Month video for the year. Unless you count love life videos, then we got a lot more incoming. But being serious for a second, you should be proud to be yourselves, especially in today's age where, you know, the whole world doing its thing and stuff like that. And just know you're never alone. And you can interpret that however you want in the creepy way. Actually, don't interpret that in the creepy way. But I'm not exactly the best person to come through with, you know, words and phrases like these. I like love life and idols. But don't ever be afraid of being yourself. You know, expressing who and what you love. Yeah, and as we're nearing towards the end of the month, just never forget that sentiment. You know. And the other thing I can say is that maybe one day we'll get an anime adaptation or some sort of adaptation, and hopefully it doesn't get fucking butchered in some way, shape, or form because this is really good. It's a really good series. You guys should read it. Y'all missing out on some peak. All right. Anyway, I'll see you guys next time. It feels really good to finally finish this video. Hopefully this video is not too long. Oh, it's fucking hot as shit, bro.